I decided to eat nothing but meat, animal protein, saturated fat, and cholesterol for 40 days in a row. That's right, no plants, no vegetables, no fruit, only animal fat and protein for 40 days. And in this video, I break down and share my 40-day carnivore experience. Let's do this. Hey Keto Camper, Ben Azadi here, best-selling author of 3 books, founder of Keto Camp. And hey, here at Keto Camp, we're on a mission to educate and to inspire 1 billion people. This video is going to blow your mind because not only do I go through my lab work, I did a comprehensive panel of blood work on day 1 and day 40. And this is comprehensive, meaning it cost over $3,500 each panel to get all these labs done. I wanted to look at my inflammatory markers. I wanted to look at my cholesterol, my C-reactive protein markers, which is a great risk factor for heart disease. What about my kidneys? What about my thyroid? We dive deep into my lab work. I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison. You're going to be blown away when I go over the markers that assess my risk of heart disease and what happened when I ate nothing but saturated fat and cholesterol. Oh my gosh. I was inspired, by the way, to give carnivore a go because I'm doing a lot of research. I interviewed Dr. Paul Saladino, who is the author of Carnivore Code. If you didn't watch that interview with Paul, you could watch it by sticker tapping the screen here. The research is solid. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence suggesting it's powerful for autoimmune. So I wanted to see what it did for my autoimmune. I have Raynaud's, and that's an autoimmune condition, and I've been dealing with health stuff for most of my life because keep in mind, I was obese for most of my life. So I wanted to know what carnivore would do for my energy levels, for my fat loss, for my autoimmune, and I wanted to have lab work to kind of back it all up. In this video, I reveal it all to you. So without further ado, let's get into my lab work. I'm gonna cut to a video here where I show you exactly all of my markers, full transparency. Here we go. Okay, I'm excited to go through my lab work with you. On day 1 of carnivore, I did a comprehensive lab work panel, a blood panel that I do on myself every year. I run this on all of my one-on-one clients, and I did the same panel on day 40. This video is going to be super helpful, not only because you're going to see some amazing things that happen in my body going to carnivore, but also you're going to see how I review lab work, and you could relate it to your lab work. This is going to be one of those videos that you watch several times and grab a pen and paper, take notes here. You're going to be blown away, by the way, when it comes to my risk of heart disease and what happened to my cholesterol, what happened to my inflammatory markers. Oh my, this is going to blow your mind. So let me share my screen here. I'm going to get into my lab work with you. Let's take a deep dive into my blood work. What I did is I put day 1 versus day 40 side by side for you. And I'm going to just go over some of what these markers mean, but also some of the changes that happened in my body by eating nothing but protein and fat from animal products, carnivore, for 40 days. So on the left side here, you see my fasting glucose. This is something you could check, with Keto Mojo. It's the same thing. 98 is a little bit higher than what I typically run, usually in the 80s. But it was kind of a stressful environment going to the lab with the mask situation. So that could have raised my cortisol and raised the glucose at the time, but this fluctuates. Hemoglobin A1C, so 5.2. What is the hemoglobin A1C? That is the 3-month average of your blood glucose. So 5.2 is pretty good. As you can see, once you go to 5.7 to 6.4, you're considered pre-diabetic. And then anything higher than 6.4 are considered diabetic. I would say anything at 5.5 or higher is cause for concern. That is pre-diabetic, and you need definitely notate that if you're at 5.5 or higher. I was at 5.2 on day 1, which is pretty good. So glucose was 98 on day 1, 92 on day 40, but the A1C dropped a point, right? It went from 5.2 to 5.1 comparing day 1 to day 40. Now, uric acid, you might have heard of like uric acid with gouts and gout flare-ups. By the way, protein does not cause gout. Healthy protein, healthy fat is one of the tools that I use for gout, by the way. But uric acid is actually an antioxidant. And it's, as you can see, 4.3 is what it was on day 1, and then it went up to 5.8. Still within range, but this just means I'm having more protein. My body's actually, the kidneys are producing more uric acid. The body's producing more uric acid. The kidneys are dealing with more protein. It's totally normal, right? So we just look at that, but we also look at other inflammatory markers to get a full picture. Now, this is looking at my kidney function and also some electrolyte balance and minerals and all that. But so BUN stands for blood urea nitrogen. It's showing how much my kidneys are filtering out protein. These are byproducts of different functions in the body. So my BUN was 9 and then doubled to 18 on day 40 of carnivore. My creatinine, which is also showing kidney function, went from 0.81 to 1.07. My eGFR, which is all looking at just protein function, also went up a little bit. All this is showing is that my body's moving more protein. Makes sense? I had more protein on carnivore. You're going to have more protein on carnivore. Is this an issue? You're going to hear people say, oh my God, all that protein is going to cause kidney disease. Well, there's not one study that has showed that. If you have a pre-existing kidney dysfunction, then yeah, you want to take caution with not too much protein. But if you are not in that category, it should be just fine. All right, so this is making sense because my body's moving more protein and we're moving more protein through the kidneys. Same thing with albumin, which went from 4.9 to 5.2. Makes sense, right? This is not looking at the full picture. We're looking at also inflammatory markers. Let's look at liver function. Day 1, my AST, ALT, GGT, these are all liver enzymes. They were both in the optimal range here, 23, 23. Anything below 25 is really good. As you can see, I was 23, but it got even better on day 40. My kidneys actually healed a bit on carnivore, which is pretty cool. So I went from 23 and 23 to 21 and 19. GGT went up a point, not really significant. Ferritin is an important marker that I was interested in seeing what was happening. So ferritin is stored iron. As you can see, 236 to me is a little bit higher than I would like. I want to be below 200, maybe around 170. And it actually went up to 275 from 236. Cause for concern? Maybe not, or maybe so. It depends on other oxidative stress inflammatory markers, which we'll look at to see a full picture here. If Dr. Mercola just saw this, he would think that I am in an inflamed state, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. If we have inflammatory fats and inflammatory and a high oxidative stress, then it can be an issue, but we'll see if that happened in my body. Vitamin D, we want that we want it above 60. 60 should be the bare minimum. I was at 65 on day 1, 62 on day 40. That's good. Now on day 40 here, my white blood cell immune system markers, the lab messed up here. There probably was maybe some damage to the vials as they were transporting it, but they didn't collect my day 40 results. But we had day 1, and I'll just share with you some nuggets here. WBC, which is my white blood cell count, RBC, which is my red blood cell count. They were kind of on the low end, both of them. I want to see this above 5.5, and this is actually fine. But my white blood cell count was 4.5. I want to see that around 5.5. A teaching note for you means if your white blood cell count is on the low end, it typically means a virus. If it's on the high end, it typically means bacteria pathogen. So I might have been fighting a virus. It could have been the coronavirus. I don't know. We know a lot of people get coronavirus. They have no symptoms. I haven't had symptoms. But this just showed my body had some sort of infection, some sort of bacteria or virus it was fighting because my markers were a little bit off. It would have been cool to see what happened after 40 days, but I don't have that marker, and it's too late to do the test again because I'm already off of carnivore. All right, this is a very fascinating page. My cholesterol panel. Right? You hear doctors say all the time, you're going to have a heart attack. Your cholesterol is this. Let's go on a statin. Not so fast. I did the NMR test, which looks at your LDL particles, and they all went up. I naturally have high amounts of LDL particles. Genetically, I run high for cholesterol and LDL particles. So as you can see on day 1, my LDLP was already high at 2,406. My LDLC was at 207. My total cholesterol was 288. My triglycerides was at 116. I want to see that below 100. So I was not naturally, but I was already high on day 1. And then on day 40, they went even higher. 3,367, 265. My triglycerides kind of stayed the same. My total cholesterol went from 288 to 345. Now, a doctor would see this and say, we need to put you on a statin. You are at risk of a cardiovascular event. Is that true? Well, this is still not the full picture. We have to understand that cholesterol is a band-aid. Cholesterol builds our hormones. Cholesterol builds your sex hormones. It's the building blocks for your cells. It's a band-aid. It repairs the body. If I'm now using cholesterol as an energy source when doing carnivore. You will too. So naturally that'll show up higher. But this means your body's actually healing if you could correlate that with your inflammatory markers, which we'll get to. So we want to look at A1C. We want to look at glucose. We want to look at insulin and inflammatory markers. And if those all look good and they actually improve and your cholesterol went up, then there is actually nothing to be worried about. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. My insulin resistance score went from 35 to 29. So my insulin resistance got I don't have insulin resistance, but my insulin got better. So let's get into the most important page, which is going to blow your mind. Check this out. So C-reactive protein is assessing your relative risk for a future cardiovascular event. Meaning, this is a good marker to look at to see how high your risk is for a heart attack or a stroke or some sort of cardiovascular event. On day one, I was 1.12, which is pretty good. I want to see that below 1, ideally at 0.5 or lower. Here's what happened after eating 40 days of carnivore, nothing but fat and protein from animals. My C-reactive protein went from 1.12 to 0.52, meaning I cut my risk of a cardiovascular event, heart attack, stroke, heart disease. I cut it in more than half by eating carnivore. What? This flies in the face of conventional norm. This flies in the face of conventional doctors that say saturated fat will cause a heart attack. Well, guess what? My cardiovascular risk was cut in half, essentially more than half. We need to understand that more people die. Get this. This is a Harvard study that showed more people die from heart attacks and strokes with normal to low cholesterol than high cholesterol. Another important marker, homocysteine, which is looking at inflammation in your vessels, so is C-reactive protein, but also brain inflammation, went from 9.0 to 8.7. Okay, also improved. Insulin was already good on day one. I didn't get the marker on day 40 because the lab messed up. My thyroid panel looked good. The bottom line is this: the oxidative stress rules over cholesterol. Inflammatory markers rule. We want to, yes, look at your LDL particles, look at your cholesterol particles, but also look at your A1C, your insulin, your C-reactive protein, these inflammatory oxidative stress markers. The fact that, yes, my cholesterol went up, my LDL particles went up, should I be concerned? I can tell you this, that I am personally not concerned. I actually love the way my markers improved, and I shared this with my colleagues. I shared it with Dr. Pompa. We reviewed this. The fact that my C-reactive protein dropped, my other inflammatory markers dropped, my A1C dropped, showed that my body is in a healing state. And carnivore actually helped my body accomplish this. And I can't wait for you to accomplish this as well. Isn't that amazing how the body healed when I gave it quality meat? I want you to understand this though. The animal foods I ate were quality meat, quality fish, quality protein, and I got it all from US Wellness Meats. They actually sponsored my 40 days of carnivore. They have the right grass-fed, grass-finished products. So if you want to go check out US Wellness Meats, you could go and click the link down below. Use KetoCamp at checkout if you want to get 15% off your entire order with US Wellness Meats. You could also go to uswellnessmeats.com. Remember, use KetoCamp at checkout for 15% off. Now that I showed you the lab work, what about other things? What did I notice? My energy levels were solid, my sleep was solid, and my autoimmune also improved. So I'm gonna cut to a short video explaining exactly how carnivore helped turn off my autoimmune genes. Check this out. So you saw what carnivore did for my blood work and the astonishing reduction in inflammatory markers and just how my body and my liver healed. And it's cool to see that data. But also, you might be wondering, how did I feel? What did it do for my autoimmune? You see, I have Raynaud's syndrome. Raynaud's is an autoimmune condition. If you don't know what an autoimmune disease is, it means your immune system is hyperactive. And it really starts with the gut and other upstream causes. But Raynaud's is a syndrome where I don't really get good blood flow to my extremities. So my fingers are very, very cold all the time. with the exception of, for me, when I eat a meal, my fingers get really hot and inflamed to the point where they turn red. And you could see my knuckles get red, my fingers start to swell. I have to take my ring off my pinky, or off my finger, put it on my pinky finger, because it hurts that bad. Sometimes I have to grab a cold cup of water or wash my hands with cold water. Now that's what was happening to me before I started carnivore. I would get a flare-up, I'm calling this a flare-up, just about every single day after eating a meal. It was stimulating, that meal was stimulating my immune system, getting this autoimmune response. So I wanted to know, going into carnivore, what would it do for me? Will I still get these flare-ups? So get this, I did carnivore for 40 days. Prior to starting carnivore, remember, I had a flare-up every single day for at least 7 months that I could remember. When I started carnivore day 1, didn't get a flare-up. Day 7, still no flare-up. Out of the 40 days that I did carnivore, I only had 2 small autoimmune flare-ups. That's it. Why? Because I was not eating the oxalates, the lectins, the anti-nutrients, and I allowed my gut and digestive system to heal and repair. And we know autoimmune starts in the gut. Isn't that amazing? That was such a telling sign that this was giving me some good healing, the carnivore was. I didn't need to look at my lab work, I felt it. What else did I feel? I also felt my energy levels were fantastic throughout carnivore. Now the first 5 days, I did get a dip, I had less energy levels as my body was transitioning, and my workout sucked, by the way, the first week. But what I did, I actually added some honey around my workouts, and I added eggs and dairy on day 7. But after that short transition, my energy levels were peak. My sleep was improved, not only by the way I felt waking up refreshed, but I used the Oura Ring and I tracked my sleep and my readiness score, which it gives me. And my sleep scores were at least 5 points on average higher. So I was getting 88, 90 sleep scores. I used to get 82, 80s. And then my readiness scores were in the 90s. I was getting excellent readiness scores just about every single day on carnivore. That didn't happen before I went carnivore. I would get good and great scores, but not excellent scores. So it helped with my sleep. It also helped my body fat. I lost a lot of body fat. My skin complexion improved. A lot of people were commenting on social media, Ben, your skin looks so much better. What are you doing? Carnivore. My body's healing. You know, we're 30 days, at the time of me recording this, it's 30 days after I stopped carnivore, and I still haven't had an autoimmune flare-up. Because this is a gene, right? When you get an autoimmune disease, when you get any symptom, it's a gene that's turned on. Autoimmune disease, it's a gene that is turned on. My Raynaud's was a gene that was turned on, and I shut it off with carnivore. Is it gonna stay shut off? I don't know, that remains to be seen. But right now, for the last 40 days of carnivore plus 30 days of not carnivore getting off, that's 70 days. I only had 2 small flare-ups in that time frame. That's amazing. So let's pray that this gene gets shut off. I'm doing a lot of things by doing detox and going upstream, and that is just a sign. So carnivore now is a tool in my toolbox. I'm gonna revisit it, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna use it every now and then, and that's the way I want you to do it as well. There you have it, that was my full experience with carnivore. I have a question for you, question of the day. Have you ever done carnivore? Are you currently doing carnivore? Or are you inspired to do it? Let me know down below. I loved my experience with carnivore so much that I revamped my entire pillar inside of the Keto Camp Academy, which is my phase pillar, which phases out carbohydrates. And before, it was not carnivore, it was kind of a variation of it, but now it's a 30-day carnivore protocol, and I outline everything that I did and how you can master it. There's 4 different levels, and I talk about the methionine to glycine ratios and so much more. And I talk about how to do carnivore the right way. So if you want to learn how to do carnivore and follow it with structure and get health coaching from me, I encourage you to go to KetoCampAcademy.com, get signed up for a membership. We have a special going on right now over at KetoCampAcademy.com. And in pillar number 3, this is a 30-day carnivore pillar for you to master carnivore and do it the right way and get exceptional results like I did for myself. So make sure you go check out the links and the notes and the resources down below. If you're brand new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you're notified when I release a brand new video. I'll be releasing a lot more videos on carnivore and how to do it the right way, but if you want a full structure, become a member of the Keto Camp Academy today. If you enjoyed that chat, be sure to watch this next video with Dr. Philip Uvadi, a world-renowned heart surgeon, all about heart disease.
Heart disease remains the #1 killer by a pretty wide margin. It was sugar is causing heart disease, or it was dietary cholesterol and saturated fat is causing heart disease.